opening the door to the building of the third Jewish temple. Some called it a kiss from heaven.
Ready for a mind-bending adventure into the unknown? Strange things are happening as the third temple is being built. Its holy walls hold what secrets? Why are strange things puzzling builders and scholars? Could ancient prophecies unleash unimaginable forces? We'll solve the third temple's mysteries and change history. Can you handle the unexplained? Israelites have longed to build the third temple, and now they are. This historic and sacred occasion fills Israelis with joy, awe, and optimism. Building the third temple shows the Jewish people's persistence and trust. According to the Bible, Jews have rebuilt the holy structure. Since God appeared on Jerusalem's Temple Mount, it is hallowed. Engineers, architects, and religious scholars have spent years planning and preparing the third temple. Using cutting-edge building techniques while adhering to religious values has been a priority. The reconstruction of the third temple is a major symbol of Israeli identity and their connection to their ancient roots. It brings together Israeli society to celebrate a common objective. This landmark building has its share of challenges and complex situations. The project's impact on regional stability and religious ties has sparked global debate. Despite these challenges, the Israelites are determined to build the third temple to fulfill a divine promise. As the cornerstones are laid and the structure rises, the third temple represents a major chapter in Israel's history, a monument to the faith, tenacity, and unbreakable spirit of a people united by their deeply rooted tradition. Israel's history revolved around the tabernacle, which preceded the temple and was utilized as a sacred home for about half a millennium. This portable shrine was crucial to the Israelites' religious and spiritual lives throughout the desert and beyond. The tabernacle was carefully planned and erected according to Exodus instructions. This edifice symbolized God's presence among the chosen. The Israelites painstakingly molded every feature using gold, silver, and beautiful textiles, showing their faith and dedication. This structure commemorated the Israelites' faith. The Ark of the Covenant, which contained the stone tablets inscribed with the Ten Commandments, was stored in the tabernacle, which was considered the holiest relic in all of Israel. It was divided up into many sections, such as the Holy Place and the Most Holy Place, with each section serving as the site of specific religious rituals performed by specially chosen priests. For centuries, the Israelites carried the tabernacle with them wherever they went. It came to symbolize God's gift of direction and safety. It was the congregation's house of worship and a vital part of the process of bringing the people closer to their Maker. The tabernacle was much more important than the building in which it was housed because it contained the spiritual center of Israel's faith and their relationship with God. Because of its unwavering presence, the people were able to develop a sense of continuity and camaraderie despite the hardships of their journey. Although the Israelites' temporary tabernacle was replaced by the permanent temple in Jerusalem, its legacy was nevertheless held in the highest regard by the nation. After its creation, it became a cherished emblem of their one-of-a-kind connection with the divine, reminding followers of their religion's humble beginnings and the religion's eternal nature. During his reign, King David had a deep desire to see a temple built for the exclusive purpose of worshiping God that would stand the test of time. The great faith and perseverance of David had allowed him to unite the kingdom of Israel and make Jerusalem its capital. He believed that the nation's unity and strength under the guidance of the Supreme Being could be symbolized by the construction of a great temple. In the wee hours of the morning, as King David was praying passionately in his palace for guidance from on high, he had a vision. God's voice told him in a kind but firm tone that he would not be the one to construct the temple. God's infinite wisdom led to the selection of another individual, a man of peace, to fulfill this sacred duty. Solomon, the oldest and favorite son of King David, was chosen. Solomon's wisdom, kindness, and diplomacy made him famous. God's desire for a man of peace to take on such a massive task found resonance in Solomon's character traits, since they show that he is capable of being a man of peace. David came to the bittersweet conclusion that God's purpose for him was far more ambitious than his own. After meekly accepting God's will, David passed on the heavenly message to Solomon. The father gave his son the benefit of his wisdom, experience, and blessings in order to prepare him for the great duty that lay ahead. David had great faith in Solomon, believing that the young prince would lead Israel to even greater heights than it had ever known. King David willingly submitted to God's will, knowing that the temple would be built by Solomon and serve as a permanent monument of God's presence among His people and His love for them. David's son would continue his father's work and be remembered as the king who brought about God's grand plan with wisdom and peace. The destruction of Solomon's temple, also known as the First Temple, by Babylonian soldiers in 586 BC, was a dark chapter in Jewish history. For about 400 years, the Jewish temple in Jerusalem served as the holiest site in the world. Solomon's temple was destroyed during the Babylonian conquest of Jerusalem, led by Nebuchadnezzar II. The sacred temple was destroyed in flames following a bloody siege. The once great structure was systematically destroyed by the Babylonians. The destruction of the First Temple, which housed the Ark of the Covenant with Moses' tablets and signified Jewish spirituality, devastated the Jewish people. The Jewish people's temple loss led to the Babylonian captivity. In Babylon, many Jews suffered. Synagogues became sites of worship in the absence of the central temple, influencing Jewish religious traditions for decades. The destruction of Solomon's temple reminds Jews of their battles, strengthening their resolve to maintain their faith and culture. The Second Temple's rebuilding centuries later would be an important event in Jewish history, but the First Temple's destruction would always be remembered. Jerusalem's Second Temple is a religious and historical landmark. The temple, constructed around 516 BC, was a Jewish symbol and communal center. Jewish exiles from Babylon returned to rebuild the First Temple. For nearly 5 centuries, the Second Temple embodied Jewish hope, persistence, and spirituality. Many renovations and extensions made it an architectural masterpiece. The temple's beauty and religious significance attracted pilgrims. 70 AD's First Jewish-Roman War impacted the Second Temple's fate. Titus's legions demolished Jerusalem's temple. After the Second Temple was destroyed, Jews scattered. The Second Temple has been remembered for generations despite its destruction. Jewish culture, traditions, and religion still value it. The temple's retaining wall's western wall, commonly known as the Wailing Wall, is a sad reminder of Jerusalem's former glory. The Second Temple's story shows people's perseverance and how historical events affect future generations. There is no universal agreement on the meaning of the Third Temple among religious traditions. Some religious Jews view the prospect of the Third Temple's construction as sacred and meaningful. They are confident that the Messianic age, characterized by peace, justice, and heavenly blessings, will begin with the construction of the Third Temple. They see the Third Temple as a symbol of humanity's spiritual connection to the Almighty, a necessary condition for the completion of the divine plan. However, Christians' views on the coming of the Messiah differ from those of Jews. Many Christians hold that Jesus Christ is the Messiah, and that His teachings and atoning death are the foundation of their faith. Since they consider the Messiah's earthly role to be complete, they do not believe the building of the Third Temple is necessary for His return. Belief in the Third Temple is grounded in ancient texts and prophecies, and stirs up strong feelings and inspires loyalty in both faiths. Despite these divergent opinions, the concept of the Third Temple is held sacred by many people because it symbolizes a connection to the divine and the promise of a brighter future. These divergent worldviews have historically given rise to rich theological discussions and cultural traditions that have shaped the identities and practices of the various religious communities. The common desire for spiritual satisfaction and divine involvement, however, remains a unifying thread that crosses cultural barriers and encourages a common search for meaning despite the variety of interpretations. The Temple Institute set out on a grand and historic quest, making every effort to get ready for the eventual building of the elusive Third Temple. The group of scientists, archaeologists, and believers, led by their tireless leader, had made incredible strides. The Institute's assembly of temple equipment was a major accomplishment. They diligently built sacred artifacts and vessels in accordance with the detailed instructions specified in religious writings, drawing inspiration from ancient scriptures and historical records. The news that they had found the Ark of the Covenant after all these years was the most incredible discovery. For eons, this fabled relic had been veiled in mystery and myth because of the high regard in which it was held for its heavenly significance. The supposed rediscovery of it sparked heated discussions among academics and Christians. Many people of religion considered the Institute's work as a sign that their own religious prophecies were getting closer to coming true, and this gave them reason to be optimistic. However, Many people had reservations about the Third Temple being built because of the political and religious implications. The entire globe waited breathlessly as the Temple Institute worked tirelessly to realize its ultimate goal, the restoration of the Third Temple as a beacon of faith and togetherness for all people. Beyond its architectural significance, the rebuilding of the temple had profound religious, political, and cultural repercussions. Many people's hearts were touched by the idea of rebuilding the temple because they felt it would bring about the realization of biblical predictions and the revival of Jewish culture. This plan, however, ran into significant obstacles because to its proximity to the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock, two of the holiest sites in Islam. The Temple Mount's disputed religious importance has exacerbated tensions between Jews and Muslims for millennia. There were fears that any attempt to reconstruct the temple would spark confrontations and inflame religious tensions. To the Muslims, protecting their current sacred places was of utmost significance, and any danger to them could spark a global uprising. The political situation was just as sticky as the reconstruction of the temple. Existing geopolitical tensions in the region could be exacerbated by the sensitive topic of the Temple Mount. Taking any sort of action could potentially provoke a backlash from the opposite side, making this an extremely tricky situation to negotiate. Rebuilding the temple was fraught with difficulties that demanded deliberation, diplomacy, and sensitivity to the many different religions and cultures at play. It was a daunting task that required an open and empathic approach to find a solution that respected the religious beliefs of all parties and fostered peaceful coexistence. The Israeli government approved a disputed plan to build a new Jewish worship space on the holy Temple Mount, which is considered holy by both Jews and Muslims. Palestinian people, who revere the site as holy and see it as central to their past, reacted angrily and negatively to the news. For many years, tensions between Israelis and Palestinians have centered on the Temple Mount, or Haram al-Sharif in Islam. It is home to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, one of Islam's holiest sites, and is where Muslims believe the Prophet Muhammad climbed to heaven. The Temple Mount is revered by Jews as the site of two ancient synagogues and the Holy of Holies of the Jewish religion. The blessing strengthens their religious rights and ties to the land. Concerns have been raised that the already tense situation in the region will worsen as a result of this decision by the Israeli government. The Palestinian Authority and other Arab countries strongly disagreed with the decision, seeing it as an attack on their religious and historical rights and a violation of the status quo. The situation is still delicate, and there are worries about how it could affect the already precarious Israeli-Palestinian peace process as foreign reactions continue to stream in. Respectful discourse and diplomatic efforts are required to achieve a mutually acceptable solution, given the strong feelings both parties have for the Temple Mount. The construction of the Third Temple is believed by many religious groups to mark the end of the world. The Third Temple is prophesied to usher in the Antichrist and Messiah. Some consider this event as a critical stage in divine designs, signaling the return of their saviors and humanity's redemption. Religious societies have debated the construction of the Third Temple based on scriptural readings and personal convictions. This prophecy has inspired millions, some with hope and reverence, and others with fear and trepidation. Scholars and religious leaders have carefully analyzed old writings and scriptures to understand these prophecies. The world watches as the Third Temple is built, combining faith, eschatology, and the future of humanity. These prophecies' effects on history are unknown. The Third Temple's building has sparked discussions about its regional effects. Proponents and critics have many perspectives due to their uncertainty. The restoration of the Third Temple is a religious and cultural symbol for some, fulfilling long-awaited predictions. They believe it may unite believers and provide spiritual comfort, promoting regional stability and peace. Advocates say the temple's presence might foster conversation and peace between religious and ethnic groups. Others worry that building the Third Temple may escalate tensions and war. They worry it will provoke certain groups and lead to hostility. The Temple Mount, a place sacred to various religions, might cause regional unrest and geopolitical repercussions. The Third Temple's building might lead to peace or violence in such a fragile terrain. Given the many opinions and interests in the region, how individuals and governments handle this sensitive subject will determine the future. Thank you so much for watching. For more, kindly subscribe to our channel, and we will see you in the next video.